City Council to order. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Doing roll call, all council members are present. Do we have anyone for public comment? No public comment. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
I'd like to move consent agenda item L3 into business item K8, if that's okay, just so we can talk about it and bring it up.
Okay. Do I have a motion with that change?
Motion to adopt with the change.
Second.
I've got a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill to adopt the agenda with the change. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Let's see, do I have a motion to approve the Isanti City Council minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting on March 31st and the City Council minutes from March 21st?
Motion to approve.
I had a question on that. For the minutes for the Committee of the Whole, if you look at page 1 down at the bottom, the last sentence says drafted accessory dwelling unit handout that resembled St. Francis and Isanti. Is that supposed to say Isanti or another town? Isanti County.
The next page carries it
okay.
over. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I've got a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Announcements, we have Committee of the Whole coming up on Tuesday, April 18th at 5 p.m. We have Planning Commission on Tuesday, April 18th at 6 p.m. And we have the City Council meeting on Tuesday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Do we have any council committee reports?
I have one. So I went to the school board meeting. Model UN had 10 student representatives there, and they made a short presentation. I thought it was interesting to know that they're ranked the number 14 program in the country for the third year in a row. Mr. Woodbury is still running the program. Spring sports started the beginning of April. There are also some concerning legislative bills being proposed, which would increase the school's cost $15 to $20 million per year. Expenses for the district are currently around $65 million. They spent over $350,000 on snow removal thus far this year, which is about double what they expected and budgeted for, which is not surprising. Next year, due to legislation decisions, school meals will be free for everyone. So that'll raise taxes, but it'll maybe make it easier for them to budget because their school meal sales actually went down almost $250,000 last year. The Performing Arts Center has some planned upgrades, and there are some mismatch in the revenues and expenses due to high inflationary pressures. I'd also like to mention that the county board today passed a Second Amendment dedicated county resolution after personally hearing multiple residents' concerns and the city council members agreeing to write a letter to the county. I'm happy to hear that they followed through with it and are doing what they can to protect our residents' constitutional rights, even if it is just a resolution. And that's it.
Yeah, it was a good meeting at the county today, and I want to say thank you to the county commissioners for doing that. That was good stuff, so. All right, let's see, we've got public hearing for our annual MS4 report.
Can you hear me? Can't find my, well, we'll just go like this. So you see the next slide. Here's, I'm sure everybody is excited for our annual MS4 report. We have to do this as mandated by the state of Minnesota every year to let our community know of all the illicit discharges that happened within the city limits. So a little background on MS4. It was developed as part of the 1972 Clean Water Act. MPCA, so Minnesota initiated MS4 in 2007, and the city of Isani has been an MS4 city since 2016 when it reached over 5,000 people. It is on the Rum River, which is an impaired water, and that's why most of the state of Minnesota, as you know, is the land of 10,000 lakes, is on an impaired water. So most of the city, or most of the state, if there's a city over 5,000, is required to have an MS4 permit through the state of Minnesota. In 2021, they authorized a new permit, and a lot of new BMPs, as they're called, best management practices, were implemented in 2022. So we were audited my first month here, if you guys remember, in 2022, which led to the updating of many procedures and increased documentation. The city implements these practices through regulatory mechanisms, education and outreach, and environmental protection. We do this with a lot of partnerships. Bolton and Menk works with us on everything. There are expertise in this area. We work with Isani Soil and Water Conservation, Cambridge, Clean Water, Land and Legacy, the DNR and the MPCA in different ways, sometimes through education and outreach. We do the water festival at the park in Isani County with Isani County, the school district, and Cambridge, and work together actually with the city of Cambridge to provide a presentation to them with the use of Bolton and Menk's cool diorama. And then also work with the others on just education on social media or through our Isanian. So the annual report for 2022 is usually due June 30th of 2023, but this year will be held off until 2024 through a new process. They're doing it all online, so that'll be nice. Right now it's a lot of Excel spreadsheets. In 2023, we had 3 illicit discharges, but you'll see in the enforcement actions, it was 98 violation letters and verbal warnings issued. That's because each development has its own SWIP. So we did the discharges on the SWIP. We had a lot of soil runoff, dirt from construction sites, that kind of illicit discharges. It's not like gas or anything, but any sand or dirt or grass on the street is an illicit discharge. So we just grouped it together with the SWIP and sent out letters to all the contractors and homeowners, specifically in Legacy Pines. It was really windy last spring, if you remember. We had a lot of garbage that blew out, not just from dumpsters, but from people's garbage cans blowing over, so that's where a lot of these letters came from. So the minimum control measures that we have to, each SWIP includes is public education and outreach, public participation, the elimination of illicit discharges to the stormwater system, construction site runoff controls, post-construction runoff controls, and pollution prevention, and good housekeeping by the city, which includes like how we store our salt, things like that. Public education and participation was one thing that we needed to increase in 2022 through our audit. We do have the Rain Garden Incentive Program, which is pretty specific to where the rain gardens can be placed throughout the city, but we do, for those places of high value to the city, we will participate up to $500 of the cost for the rain garden projects. We do have a lot of Isanian news articles every quarter, and that includes a lot of talk about dog waste, grass clippings, and things like that people don't really think about how it impacts our groundwater. And then we have resources on our website. Illicit discharge reporting for residents is available on the city website, and we do receive some that way. For instance, the trash last year, we did receive one call, as was noted on the previous slide. And it is covered under Ordinance 670 of the stormwater. We do have a response procedure, so if it's something like oil or gas, we do call an outside entity, and work with Public Works is really good about staying on top of that. And then we track all of this stuff through weekly site visits to all of our construction sites. We have to visit at least weekly, as well, or high flyer sites, I guess, sites that we've had a lot of issues with. So if we know there's been a gas dumping continuously at some place, we'll have to check that site out too. Luckily, we don't have any of those sites. Most of our sites are really focused on the construction sites right now. We also have to check these sites within 48 hours of any rain, snow or rain event within a half an inch of rain. So this year it's been a lot. And then we have a site inspection checklist, which is developed and maintained by the community development specialist, and this goes over the inspection period being a minimum of 7 days. Oops. And it was updated in 2022 to reflect the audit, so making sure that we're getting the information that we're supposed to. And then a priority site list procedure was developed, even though right now we just don't have any of those. And post-construction stormwater management, we have written procedures for site plan reviews, track and enforce erosion control, and civil penalties for violation, and enforcement and response procedures that we follow. And pollution prevention and good housekeeping, we have a facilities inventory on our GIS, and it also identifies all of our stormwater practices within our ordinance, and all the procedures are written out. And so we've been addressing the conditions outlined in the audit letter of warning. We've been increasing public outreach and training through social media, Water Day, and the events in the 8th grade career day, which is in May here. And we continue to implement and improve SWIP enforcement response procedures, and we partner with Bolton and Menk to make sure our developments are following all the things they need to be doing. And that's it. Any questions?
It's a lot better than last year's.
Yeah.
You've done a great job. Number of violations. Because they are on top of it, so. And I do know in other cities, a lot of times they won't, new construction sites, if they don't have the drainage tubes, socks, whatever, silt fences in, whatever, they will not give inspections, so.
And we are doing that now. We're actually having a perimeter control inspection added as part of the foundation inspection. So we're becoming more strict with it just because we have to be. We don't want to get fined as a city, and it'll cost us a lot more. And then we're forced to do daily checks from other cities who have had to go through that process, and we don't have the manpower to do that, so.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. When I was a kid and working, not working, but, watching my parents work the restaurant, I mean, you didn't have mop sinks even. We weren't required to have a mop sink, so you just dumped the mop water down the, outside, and, nobody really cared all that much, but.
We can't do that anymore.
Can't do that anymore, no, times changed, so. But it's probably a good thing, so. Any other questions?
You do need to call a public hearing.
Oh, okay, all right,
for this, and then we'll be done for the year, so thank you.
all right. I'll call the public hearing then, if anybody would like to come up and speak on this matter. And hearing none, we'll move on to the next business item, K1, interview, oh, I gotta close the public hearing. Thanks, Steve. All right, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll move on to K1. Interview applicant Paul Burley for vacant Economic Development Authority seat.
Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay.
All right. Well, we'll just have a few questions here for you, Paul. What has been your community involvement?
I have been and still am part of the Isani Lions, North 65 Chamber. I'm no longer a member there, but I was for a long time, and a member of South Isani Baptist Church.
All right. What is your business-related background?
35 years running my chiropractic practice in Isani County. 12 of those years have been in Isani.
All right. And what strengths will you bring to the EDA?
Well, I believe I'm committed to the city of Isani. This is the Isani EDA, so I think that's important. And then I think I bring the strength and promotion of Isani business, the Isani business community.
All right. And what do you see as the potential future opportunities and commercial growth for Isani?
Well, I see Isani will continue in a growth mode as people continue to want to leave the larger cities. Seems like the second term on the board, we had more people come up from Blaine and other areas to run their either manufacturing or other businesses up here.
Sure. And can you attend meetings the first Tuesday of each month, starting at 7:30 PM or immediately following the 7 PM city council meeting, whichever is later?
Yes.
All right. Any questions for Paul?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Mayor and Council.
Josie, I had a question on that one. So it says the amending the resolution of the city boards. If you look at that, I know a couple of meetings ago, we had talked about putting, having an alternate being anyone on those, but that wasn't changed.
Yes, Councilmember Merrill, thank you for your question. Yes, so underneath the table, there's a statement or a sentence added. The mayor and council members appointed to the respective commission, board, and advisory committee above may appoint another council member in their place as an alternate or alternate to the alternate if they are not able to attend. So we did not remove the alternates that were listed in the table, but we added that so it could be at council's discretion.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on to K2, consider resolution authorizing ad for bid for the Third Avenue Utility Extension Project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this is just continuing on the plans and specs process for the Third Avenue Utility Extension, where we're extending sewer and water up to those 4 lots along Third Avenue. As we discussed before, this is where Mid-Continent Communications is paying their share of what it would have taken them to get the utilities up there, and we've taken over the project to enlarge it to be able to service the next 3 lots up and have the infrastructure built to our standards. So at this point, we're ready to take it out for bids and see what kind of numbers we get from contractors.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to K3, consider resolution authorizing ad for bid for the Railroad Crossing Improvement Project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the that railroad planking project that the BNSF approached us with about replacing their planking, and for us to be able to use state aid funds to cover our share of the planking cost, as well as the street patching and traffic control that would go along with it. We had to put together state aid quality plans and have the state review them and approve them. So we've completed that, and now it's ready also to go out for bids to get contractors to give us pricing on it.
So I have a question on that one for you, Jason. So on the resolution, it says the cost share to the city for the planking is $800 a foot. of planking along the tracks. This is a 50/50 cost share with the railroad. So if we don't have the estimates yet, how is that a 50/50 cost share?
So they do their own work, and
Okay.
so it is their unit cost of $1,600 a foot for themselves. And so they're assigning, or, doing a 50/50 cost split with them is basically we're paying them $800 a foot for their work, and then, so we don't get to control it at all. They're managing it, their contract, their people. We just do the traffic control to close the intersection, and then the street patching to repair our street is the part that we're specifically bidding here. We're not, that $800 a foot thing is not in our bid.
Okay. So is that fairly average for cost, or did they inflate that, or?
Actually, I specifically asked that question, and it sounds like it's actually a slightly reduced rate because they're in town. If they had a larger travel to bring their crews here for a specific reason, as opposed to, so that, this is for two different intersections here in town, Main Street and Isani Parkway. They also approached the county with one or two of their crossings in the same area. So when they come to town in one wave, they actually are able to slightly reduce that cost. It sounds like a significantly large dollar amount, but, it's kind of one of those, just like we talked before, kind of, this is our chance to get them to fix it. And if you've driven them, at least two of them are pretty much shot. And so it's kind of, to get it fixed, we got to kind of just roll, I guess, with the program.
Are they gonna repair South Passage? Big holes in the middle too?
On their planking? No, I guess specifically,
There's actually bolts showing exposed and stuff.
okay. I'll,
It's been like that all year, so.
like one of them is,
There's two
Broken?
big holes if you're going
Okay.
east.
I
You
can
gotta
certainly bring it
do
up.
this, or else you're gonna hit them and possibly blow out your tire on those bolt heads and stuff exposed.
sure, I can reach out to them, this specific project and the railmaster, and see if we can draw their attention to it. I haven't heard about it, so I don't know if
Yeah.
anything's been done yet, on that, but certainly can bring it up.
How many railroad intersections are in town, in the city limits? 4?
I believe it's 4, is that right?
By Evercat, Main, Heritage, and South Passage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Heritage would be a county, or, county road. Maybe it is just 3 for city. Yep.
So in this proposal, we're doing Heritage, correct? Or is that, no?
No, that's what the county got approached to do, and that's, I guess I don't actually know what the county's doing with their coordination with them, but we
Okay.
only have to do our city streets, which are the two, not South Passage, but Main Street and Isani Parkway are the two
Okay.
that they had in their program to do now. And whether or not there's some patchwork that has to happen, or I guess I haven't seen it for our other one, I guess. So we only have to be responsible for our city street crossings of their tracks.
Okay. How bad is the Sandy Parkway one right now? Is that,
That one's not as bad, this Main Street one's pretty
bad.
bad. Isani Parkway is, I guess in that starting to go bad mode, and so if we're getting the coordination and getting it all done now, it makes sense. If our pricing comes in bad, I think we can still discuss the idea of not doing that one, but, we're going into this with the idea that doing it all as one will get our prices slightly down, so trying to get it done when we can.
okay, so if South Passage, if they determine it's bad and needs to be replaced, would we have to bring that back to council, I assume, or can we give you some guidance on that now?
So, depending on what the problem is, if there's like a spot failure, like in their planking, and they can come do some kind of patch, we don't usually have to get involved at
Okay.
all. It's once they're actually trying to replace planking where they have to shut down their tracks and literally like remove and replace sections is when it turns into a much bigger ordeal. And yeah, we'd probably have to bring it back to council to have those discussions.
Okay.
And I know you had mentioned before that when they come to you and they want to do it, I mean, you better do it because they're hard to get hold of if you want to do it on your timing, so.
Yeah.
So definitely something we wanna get done when they're ready to act, so. All right, I had a motion from Councilman Lundin, I believe.
No, but I will make the motion.
Okay, all right.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to K4, consider resolution for request by Granny Mays Catering for a CUP amendment.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is a resolution for a request for a CUP amendment from Granny Mays Catering. They presented at the Planning Commission meeting in March, talking about their plans to expand their kitchen and seating space and serve lunch. So it's pretty exciting to have another place to go to eat during the day. And with the following conditions of approval, that all applicable licenses are obtained from the proper authorities, and all expansions or enlargement of the dining room area may be approved through an amended conditional use permit, which is this. They currently have one that was approved by resolution 2018-078. They submitted a sketch for the interior plans and showing the locations for the additional dining space, storage, and refrigeration and freezer space. And the Planning Commission recommended approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to K5, consider resolution to approve 2023 council goals.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So it has been the City Council's practice to conduct an annual goal-setting session to balance the workload and demand with available resources. The City Council did meet on January 31st of this year to discuss those goals. Before you is a list of City Council goals, and we can add to this list if you deem if you would like to, or we can have further discussion at another date. But what the list I have before you includes Illuminate Isani. This is just for 2023 goals. Illuminate Isani, completion of the new Isani Police Department facility, intersection control at Eastwood and CASA 5 Heritage Boulevard, and splash pad in Bluebird Park.
So, I remember that goal-setting meeting, we talked a lot, and I thought one of the goals we had was continuing social media and live streaming stuff. Is that something that we can add? And then as well as, I think we did talk about Public Works, but I thought we had a pretty good agreement that they would need a new salt shed. So those are two things I remember talking about, but I wasn't sure if we'd,
I think the social media, you really could check that off the list because it's done already. So I think. I mean, the
Just
only- the
continuing
only thing-
social media.
The only thing that we're really looking at that's, what are we, basically the comments, I think, is the last thing we've got to kind of make a decision on, and we're still working on that. So I don't know that we need to add that. I mean,
Okay.
it's really is pretty much done. And what was the other thing you said was?
the Public Works
Oh,
salt
yeah,
shed.
Right.
I just noticed, if you look at the previous year's goals, they had social media on there like every year, the last 4 or 5 years. So I think it's
Sure.
like a continued thing, but,
Yeah, I mean, the salt shed and the Public Works building, I think, was 2025 anyway, is when that's scheduled, right? So, I mean, we're really not ready to make any decisions on that, I guess, this year.
I think we talked about a salt shed this year, because they need it. I thought we talked about that in that meeting.
Typically, in the past, what I've put together as the resolution of the goals is when there was a full consensus,
Okay,
which I'm not sure if there was a consensus on that,
okay.
which there wasn't on a lot of these things that actually at that meeting. That's why it took a little bit of time as we kind of discussed it through committee of the whole and further conversations, but
It's probably part of Matt's CIP as well,
Sure.
too, so.
How about the railroad project? Could that be on there too, to get that done this year? That's a goal, isn't it? Or is that separate because we've already talked about it, or?
Railroad
think
project
that-
has a repair in it? We just,
Oh, no, I know, but couldn't that be a goal that we have for this? No, okay,
it's not a
These are
goal,
where-
because it's already been processed being done.
okay.
There's a lot
That
more
one
that.
actually doesn't take a lot of staff time. That one's just kind of,
Okay.
the engineer gets the ball rolling and that'll be contracted out. But these are actually things that really the staff is working on, and visions. But if you would like to add that, I can certainly add it.
There's a lot more that we're obviously gonna do. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think these are kind of like the big picture, view of you know, just the big projects that we want to knock out, you know, and I think that's a pretty decent list.
I guess I just look at, if you look at the list from all the previous 10 years, there's more items on it, so I just didn't know if it was, makes us look like we don't have goals.
No, I think it looks like we have goals. I think that we have a lot of discussions to continue on. I would expect that next year we'll have a very lengthy, long list as everyone's gone through the whole budget process and knows exactly what we want, not only for next year, but then going into the future.
Okay,
A lot of things were on goal settings, were left on there for years and years and years.
Sure.
They just never got removed. Right? It's like street infill lighting, finishing sidewalks. If they aren't gonna be a reality, there's no sense keeping them on as a goal session, because they're not gonna happen anytime soon. I mean, these things have.
Well,
specific
there's
dates
just,
on
there's
them.
things that you put on a goal setting, and it's like, well, that's just the basic things that a city does, you know, we don't really need to put it on a goal setting meeting.
Like, for example, a mayor and council economic development initiatives, like that had been reoccurring for many years. Well, we do that. It's not that we're not doing it. It's really, that's just baked into our daily job that we do.
sure.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to K6, draft cannabinoid ordinance for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So Mayor and Council, this was something that we discussed at the last Committee of the Whole. This has kind of been a continuing discussion of what we had. Currently, what is in place is a moratorium, which does not allow for new businesses to begin selling edible products, THC products that became legal July of last year. It was discussed to remove and lift the moratorium, so it didn't just give exclusion to businesses at the time that were selling, but to all of them. And then at that time, it was discussed about including an ordinance within our city code, which would, the recommended chapter would be Chapter 298, cannabinoid products, which covers any edibles. Now, cannabinoid products has a vast array of different products. One thing that was discussed at council late last year was kind of bringing that just to be edible, so it didn't include the lotions and CBD products that maybe were used at a veterinary office or some other settings that weren't actually ingested. That is something that could be revised. I'm looking for recommendation from the council if this is something that, the direction that you'd like to go. And then we would post it, and then it would come back to council for possible approval. Another thing that was included in this draft ordinance is the distance from a school establishment. We did, based on what I heard at the committee, the whole meeting was door to door of 100 yards or 300 feet. So that has been included. There hasn't been any other youth institutions included in it, just the schools. This does have compliance checks for the police department to be able to do compliance checks. Because I know there were some discussions on how would we enforce, who's going to inspect and ensure that the businesses are selling things appropriately. And then the rest of the chapter pretty much is state statute language. This would be for zoning allowed in all business districts because it would be classified as general retail.
I think it's a
If you have any questions on that, and then we can move into the fee.
good start. If we have to massage it later on, we can do that.
If the state does legalize any more products, whether it be just THC or actual marijuana, then this would be amended. But a lot of this would still stand, but it would be changed to include those new products if council desired.
I think that's pretty much what we discussed the last time.
The only question I had was on the edible, because it's where it says, you know, if a license is required is, you know, let's see, it will be unlawful for any person to sell at retail any edible cannabinoid products within the city unless the person holds a retail cannabinoid license, but you think that like if they're vaping it or something like that you could call that edible?
I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that edible or vapes, inhalants would be considered edibles. I think
Yeah,
that
I was
would be
looking at the
separate, so that would
definition
not
there.
be regulated under this.
Yeah, so I mean, is that something that we wanna
That would probably be
smoke?
come upon if recreational marijuana is legalized in Minnesota.
Okay.
It'll probably fall under that, I would think.
I do believe that some Delta 8 and 9 products are put into the electronics delivery systems, the vape-type products. But that would not be covered under this ordinance.
So what do we want to include it?
Well, that's all I'm saying is
Yeah.
do we wanna do it now so that it's ready for the future if something were that, you know what I mean? I'm assuming that all the places that are doing the edible stuff are also doing the
Right,
vape stuff, right?
right.
So it's gonna be the same, but I mean, at least if you, so, well, I don't do edibles, but you know, I don't need a license, you know, but all these other people that are selling the same stuff, but they haven't have edibles, have to have a license, is all I'm thinking about. You know, so do we wanna just include it now so that it's in there and that, you know, any CBD or, you know, any place like that is gonna have that obligation to get a license, or?
Might as well. I wouldn't have a problem doing that.
And then just exclude like the lotion type products?
Yeah, right, because
Okay.
then you're only talking about inhaled products
Inhaled.
or
Interesting.
edible
Okay,
products.
sure.
And the definition of the edible is, so it's not a drug, so I mean, if Paul at the chiropractor's office has some kind of a CBD pill for, I feel like he'd mentioned something like that before, that's a drug, that, you know, like a pharmaceutical sort of thing, so that's not, I don't think that would be considered part of the edible class there, right? Is why it's saying that in the definition. Yeah. So I think we're getting away from anything that we were making sure we didn't want to just catch up in this net of, you know, silliness like lotions or anything like that, but we're focusing on the edible and the inhaled
Inhalants?
products, yeah, so.
I can add that. I can do some more research and add that, and if council is okay with it, still post it for that 10 days, so when it comes back, if that is what you're looking for, then it'll have been ready to go, and it could be adopted if so desired.
Yes.
The one thing we need to discuss is the fee. So at the end of last year, in December of 2022, there was discussion about this coming down the pipeline of having license, and we did actually implement that into the fee schedule, believing that some kind of license was going to be required in this year as we ironed out a new chapter for this regulation. And that was set at $250. Is that still an appropriate fee annually, once per year?
And that covers our costs, basically, staff time and a background check and,
That would include the background check, yes. Yep, and staff's time.
If you guys are okay with it, I'm
I think that's pretty
okay with it.
reasonable, yeah.
Is that just barely covering the expenses or at 250? Okay.
Yes.
Then, yep, I'm okay with it too.
And this is just for discussion tonight, right? So we're not
It's just for
making a motion or
discussion,
anything. Yeah.
if you had any changes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. Any
Yep.
other questions or discussion? Moving on to K7, council chamber audio option discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I did put this on as an item for discussion, but if the council desired to take action, we could do so, and we would draft a resolution following this discussion, or following this. So it has been discussed quite a few times about the audio quality. I'm happy to report that our Facebook quality is much better today, which is great. We were able to figure out one of the settings, so that was awesome. But we have 3 different options before you. One of them, I'll start with wireless lapel option number 1. That is to have 6 more, because we actually have 2 of the lapel wireless options, which we have kind of in the center podium there. That is something that the people can, council could clip onto their lapel, but it would be mobile. You can take it with you. That is the most expensive option, and that is at $10,152. The reason why that is the most expensive is because it does take more hardware, because we have to have more ports in our back room to add more things to be available in the rack. The second option is a wired lapel option, so that would be moving the mics that you currently have before you, taking that mic out, but using the stand to have a wired lapel. So it'd still clip on your collar or your shirt, however, it would be tethered to the wired hardware that we currently have. That's at $4,290. And then the last option, as I have listed as number 3, which would be ceiling microphones, that is at $8,488, and that is to have some drop-down mics above you from the ceiling.
So I have a question. I thought there was a 4th option too. That was like $1,100. I don't remember where I saw it. It looked like it was just a filter or a different actual receiver end for the microphone.
Can these just be replaced with newer ones?
So we did have, I did not include it in the packet because I don't believe it's a viable option. It is what we did to the microphone that was at the at the podium, which we changed the capsule at the end. I have not noticed that much of a difference for how it picked up, which is why we put the lapel one there, because that one is more, but that is almost 1,100 per microphone.
Oh, per microphone.
I guess, I mean, I think if you get close to it, I know Josie did some drills with staff, and maybe we need to go through that as a council, where she took just a piece of, like cardboard or paper or something, and just kind of taped it there and said, okay, you need to be this close to your microphone for people to hear you. And you can really tell the difference. I mean, even just, being close like this versus back like this, I mean, it makes a big difference. So I think, if we wanna, I think that'd be a lot cheaper if you wanna just give us some drills, some practice drills or
I
something. like
agree.
I can't believe how much they're trying to get out for that stuff, so. But almost every single meeting, there's either someone in the comment section saying they can't hear what someone said, or someone messages one of us asking what was said at this time marker, because it's missing, so.
It really is to be about 4 to 5 inches away from the end of the microphone to be picked up well. Do know that staff does have the ability to turn you down, so if you felt that you were being really loud and you were concerned about how that's coming across, we can turn you down. Right now, we have every mic turned up as high as it'll go, because typically they're not super close, but we do have the ability to ratchet down if we needed to, if you were consistently speaking into the microphone.
I mean, is there a cheaper option just to even your backup audio that you had a couple months ago? I think it was done with the iPad or a phone. You could hear everybody. So I don't get why these quotes are so expensive. It's like they're trying to find the most expensive option versus the option that actually works for us. Is there a way to just incorporate like an iPad with the wire running over to the?
What we did use was the iPad, and that had an amplifier that was plugged into the port that we used that one time, which I think is the meeting that you're referencing. We don't have the ability to put that into our streaming hardware, which I think the problem is getting whatever microphone we use to incorporate to the rack equipment that we have in that closet there. I think it's just very expensive equipment to modify. Now, we could do something for Facebook or something using that, but we did discuss that, and we'd have to add an extra port to it. And again, it would be sitting on a tripod, because we don't have the ability to put it into the system.
Okay. Is there anything we can do as maybe have a city staff always remind everybody to speak into the microphone? I mean, because I don't think it's right that sometimes there's a couple minutes of audio that you can't even hear. So who knows what's being said? It's kind of a public record issue too. So is there a way that we can have somebody that's just always a stickler on the microphones?
It's not a public record, though. It's not an official meeting on Facebook.
No, but
But
this,
even the
this,
recordings.
the recordings are a public record I'm talking about. And the recordings are the same thing. You can't hear what's being said if we're not talking into the microphone.
So it's same thing when it gets switched to YouTube? There's dead spots on YouTube too then?
Yes. There's dead spots in the recording from our hardware.
I've went back and listened to many audio recordings before they had video, and I've never had a problem listening to any of them, any audio. So I'm not sure if they were using this style microphone at that time,
In our
5,
meetings?
6, 7 years ago.
We've had those same microphones for quite a while.
I've never seen a different
there.
microphone than what's sitting in here.
Sure. I know I'm guilty of accidentally hitting the off button twice and not holding it closer to me, but since you've made everybody conscious of it, I've tried to keep it really close to me when I'm talking. I think we just try that for a few weeks. I think we're better.
And I can
It's a
remind
new
everybody
console.
too, I mean, when we start the meeting, I mean, if we're worried about people coming up, I mean, I can try to throw a little reminder in there to, hey, make sure you speak into the microphone, and, if you want me to do something like that, I could do that when we start the meetings, but I just don't wanna spend that
Right,
kind
I
of cash,
agree. I was hoping there'd be like a few $100 option for a basic microphone that
Yeah,
just
that would
plugs
be
right in.
different, yeah, right.
But
Right,
I don't necessarily know that this audio company's really has our best interest in mind.
These are very directional. I noticed when you're looking at it and talking compared to just barely talking off to the side, it's a big difference.
They're not sensitive enough.
And that is
Right.
the one that we upgraded at the podium. It is to get that wider, because, if people do move, but do we want to pay, it's expensive just to do that capsule part.
So,
I do think that that lapel one, the wireless, picks up better. So one thing we did order actually today is a $20 arm that you'll see. It may not be the most fashionable at our podium, but we'll connect the little lapel microphone to that. So then it will be something that people can adjust as they come up to speak at public comment. And they'll just have to push the button because otherwise the battery would die if we leave it on there all the time. But I think that that'll really help because I know on some public comments you can't hear people either. And we've even struggled, like, what was that address? As we listen back to it. So I think that that's a very cheap modification we can do up there to help when people come up and even presentations by staff.
how much was that microphone up there? Was that one of the quotes, was getting
Yeah, that's a
seven of
very
them?
expensive one. That was
Okay.
the one that was, well, let's see. I have it written down.
$10,000?
It's within the 10,000, but that's to buy 6 of them.
Okay, so I know you had talked to the AV company about having the microphone capsule replaced, and that's what you did, correct?
That's what we did at the one that looks like this, that we leave
Yep.
up there typically. But even that wireless lapel one is better than the
Right.
upgrade.
So the audio video company kind of led you astray on that too, is,
It is better than what we had.
okay,
It's just, I
Not the
feel,
best.
I think even when people come up to speak, they don't want to speak 4 to 5 inches away. That's just not what they, you feel like you're yelling, but really, you're not.
All right, are we gonna hold off for right now?
yeah.
All right. Let's see, and Luke, I forgot to write it down. Which item did you want to pull out? L3?
L3,
Okay, so we'll move on to K8, resolution to approve donation box at liquor store.
Yes, so we do have a standing resolution that allows for the liquor store to have a donation box. And they do probably every 2 to 3 months, they have a donation box there. It depends if it's, sometimes it's driven by MMBA. A lot of times it is, and they try to do something where then some of the companies, the liquor companies will throw in some as well, some matching funds. This one is the 10th annual MMBA for Help Our Local Animals Supply Drive. And we have done this one in the past. It's Rough Start Rescue, which is not located within Isani, but fairly close for a rescue place. And they do a lot of good for the surrounding community, not just the community that they reside in. And so that is the one that we will have at the liquor store.
Yeah, we've been doing that for, many years.
yep. So I asked to bring that up to the agenda so that she could give us a little rundown and maybe as like an announcement that, this is a great opportunity to if the animals in the area. So that's the only reason I brought it up, because I think it's a good program, and I don't think people necessarily know about it, and maybe, if there's 30 people watching the live stream right now, they're hearing it, so that's the only reason I brought that up. Thank you.
It looks like they'll reimburse you if you adopt a pet,
Yeah, $100.
$100, yeah. All right, let's see, and then I did want to mention the Federated Co-op donating that was 5,000, I believe.
Yep, $5,000, yep.
Yeah, for the splash pad projects, that's awfully generous of them, so I wanted to mention that and let them know how much we appreciate that, so.
And then I did have a question on L5, if that's okay. So L5, it said, she was resigning and leaving employment not in good standing. So why, I didn't know if that was correct or what that means, or if that's something we can't talk about. I just thought it was interesting when I read that.
So per our personnel policy, you must and are required to give a 2-week notice
Okay.
and fulfill that 2-week notice from the time you turn your resignation in to leave in good standing. Typically for part-time people, it doesn't really make much of a difference. For full-time people, it does, because you wouldn't get any of your leave banks cashed out if you don't leave in good standing.
Okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't something that maybe we needed to address as in making employment
Something you gotta
better
be
there.
careful too is if people are not leaving in good standards, you typically can't speak about it.
Sure.
When somebody leaves an employment or they're fired or let go and you are written down as a reference, you can just say, yes, they worked for me. You can't say why they were terminated, why they left. You can't legally do that.
Sure.
So,
And another thing I'll add is, if there's people looking back on resolutions, if that person was to apply to work here again, we typically don't rehire someone who didn't leave in good standing.
Okay.
Because of X reasons.
I asked that question because someone that lives in the city messaged me asking what it meant, so
It's sometimes the questions like that, you probably just talk to Josie after a meeting.
Sure.
We don't wanna be running someone's name through the mud in a public meeting.
Yep, no problem.
Because you could be held liable for that.
Well, okay.
I don't disagree with Luke. I mean, if somebody's working for me and I got can them for a reason, there's a reason I got canned you. But I can't legally say to another employer why I released them. They no longer are, working for me. That's all you can say. I don't agree with that, but it's the law, so. And motion to pay the consent agenda.
Second?
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I have a motion to adjourn from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Collison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned.